Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Lympha Press Leadership Series, where we shine the spotlight on people making a difference in the world of lymphedema, wounds, CVI, and lipedema. My first guest is actually one of my most favorite people, Brandy McKeown. Did I say that correctly?
Yes, absolutely.
Brandy McKeown from the ILWTI, which is the International Lymphedema and Wound Training Institute. Brandy, it's so nice to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me, Brenda. I love this opportunity. And of course, you're one of my absolute favorite people. And my favorite interviewer of all is you.
Well, then there you go. There's love all around here. And what I feel is important is that both patients in the populations I mentioned and the clinicians know who key people are, because the more we know who's out there, the less we are siloed, and the more we can call on people for reinforcements or help or assistance. We are all about the same thing, which is helping people and helping advance the cause for a cure and therapies to manage these chronic conditions. So without further ado, how in the world, Brandy, did you end up with ILWTI, and what's your background and experience?
So, Brenda, I'm a practicing occupational therapist for the last 22 years. I kind of fell into the lymphedema realm because I ended up at the first hospital I worked for, and they were asking me to create a pre-mastectomy program or a post-mastectomy program. And I had a little piece of that from some of my internships from college. And the next thing you know, I am being lymphedema certified. And I went to Atlanta, Georgia for 3 solid weeks. It was 21 days of long and tedious course back when that's how we did all of that. And I became lymphedema certified 21 years ago. I was all of 24 years old, and I fell in love. Back 21 years ago, people didn't really understand lymphedema at all. Physicians didn't understand it. Other therapists didn't understand it. Patients surely didn't understand it. However, I had the joy of watching lymphedema grow as I grew with lymphedema as well. So not only have I been able to help thousands of patients by now, but I have a couple different clinics that I now run on an outpatient basis. And a couple years ago, I had the absolute best opportunity to take over as CEO of ILWTI. So I am one of the co-owners of International Lymphedema and Wound Training Institute. So not only do I get to help treat patients, treat wounds, work with other amazing therapists who work with me to treat these patients as well, but now I have a phenomenal staff of instructors who do the same exact thing. And the beautiful part is that those instructors all around the United States and now international as well. So not only is ILWTI in the United States, but we're working with a trainer from Turkey. We're working with a trainer from Kuwait. And we also have ILWTI South Africa with Susie Davies. So we are very internationally based. And another thing that we have done is been able to bring teletraining. So we bring our lymphedema and wound certifications into people's homes, into people's offices, where they are at the majority of the time, with as little interruption to their normal weekly schedules and day and life schedules as we possibly can. So our goal is to really have as much outreach as we possibly can. As a therapist, I could touch a lot of people. I pull from about a 90-mile radius around the rural South Georgia area that I live in. However, with ILWTI, my outreach is endless, right? So it's amazing what we can do and what we can do with the lymphedema population with that.
You were a forerunner. ILWTI was a forerunner in using the power of technology.
Yes.
To open up training. And it was a bold move. And boy, when COVID hit, it sure made sense, didn't it?
It sure made sense. And it definitely, we've had to rearrange how we all live, right? And all of a sudden we realized that not only was it good during COVID, but then we realized we were able to reach out to people that otherwise would never have received this training, right? Who couldn't leave their smaller hospitals and clinics to be able to go for what's 9 days now for an on-site training course. You know, we've learned to do hybrid courses where people can do the hands-on stuff on site with us. And there's a lot of people who can do it all via teletraining, right? Because they're going to work on their volunteers with us watching them. And the beautiful part about teletraining is this, is that when I do an on-site course, you know, I can take a couple of instructors with us, right? When I do a teletraining course, I can have every instructor that I have on staff to come in during all of those trainings. So I can add more instructors if I realize we have too many student to instructor ratio. We need a little more help. We just ask somebody else to come on and join us. It's a beautiful thing. We have breakout rooms where we can teach these people much more one-on-one. We have in our setups at our homes, we all have these large screens so that we can see these students and the methods and the techniques, and we can teach all of those. And so that we can see what the pressures are of the hands and the bandages and see what the debridement of that wound looks like. We've got it all set up quite beautifully now so that we can very much do those on-site trainings, but we can also do it in the teletraining format via Zoom and be just as effective with teaching those therapists how to do these techniques. So we can outreach all over the place now. So we find that, you know, we're reaching people in the more rural type areas, especially for a lot of our trainings who they would have never come if it had been an on-site training.
That's an excellent point. And we have seen firsthand at Lympha Press, first of all, we are honored to be a part of your curriculum, because when you teach pneumatic compression therapy, I love the fact that you embrace the fact that people need to know what their options are. And it's not all created equal. Every company has their own unique features that your therapists in training need to know about. So we appreciate that. We have seen you in Zoom and in person doing your trainings. And it's very, you know, the quality of students you get too is also amazing. So you basically have said it, but can you encapsulate what your mission and core values are at ILWTI?
You know, our mission is to really just give the most excellent education and training in lymphedema and wound care. We want to enable all of those clinicians to be able to not only grow as therapists, but to be able to grow those programs, right? So another mission that we have at ILWTI is really to be able to not only train those therapists, but guess what? We have to be able to bill for those services. We have to make those programs and clinics financially viable, right? Well, that's the one thing that ILWTI does that no other training program does. And that's it. We have a program and clinic startup program. We have outreach. We have another affiliate program where we can actually be a part of those clinics to get them up and running and started, and then maintain that for the next 5 to 10 years to make sure that they thrive and grow as a clinic. So billing and coding and all of the hard stuff, right? All of the stuff that a lot of therapists are like, I don't really want to have to deal with that part. Well, we can give you those pieces. We have those pieces. The wonderful part about myself being a practitioner, right? I still treat full time, as well as I'm the CEO of ILWTI, is that I have those clinics. I have to make my clinics viable as well. So every year, when all of the new rules and laws and codes and cuts, and mostly cuts, very few increases anymore, come around, I make sure that I research all of those and I follow them all really closely. And then I update all of our information annually to be sure that we have the most up-to-date and the most comprehensive and sustainable coding that we can possibly have. So not only do we teach how to be an amazing therapist and how to be an amazing lymphedema and wound therapist, but how to make ourselves viable and how to code and bill all of that to be the most financially viable clinic that we can possibly be, or program.
And that is the component that gives most people who just want to help people the most angst, because there is the business side of it. So I love that you address the business side of it. And I'm so glad you mentioned that, because it is a distinguishing factor of what you do and what you provide. So we have two different audiences watching this, patients and clinicians. What's the one thing patients need to know about ILWTI?
The one thing that patients need to know is that if you are in a location and you can't find a therapist, remember that there is the Lymphology Association of North America that you can go to actually try to find therapists that are in your region. You can always email me at Brandy McKeown, BrandyMcKeown at ILWTI.com. And I would be more than happy to help you reach out and find a certified therapist. So the main thing as a patient, please make sure that your therapist is a certified lymphedema therapist, which means that they need a course that is at least 135 hours of length, and that they are keeping that certification up to date. Okay. So if a therapist, as much as I love Lympha Press, right? If a therapist is only putting you in a compression pump when you come to see them, right? Not really doing much bandaging, beware, right? That therapist should be very hands-on with you. That MLD should be done hands-on. The Lympha Press is a beautiful and amazing adjunct to this treatment. However, the patient still needs to go through that full, complete decongestive physiotherapy, which includes manual lymphatic drainage. It includes multi-layer bandaging most of the time. It includes lymph for compression garments, and then also being measured and fit with that Lympha Press as well. So just remember that there's multiple components. It's skincare, it's wound care if needed. There's so many components, and don't let a clinic talk you into going through that treatment if it doesn't have all of those components to it.
Really great advice. And we always say we love our therapists because we are in no way a replacement for the hands-on therapy that they provide, but we know how hard our therapists work, and to enable a patient to maintain the progress achieved under the care of their therapist, it's a win-win. So thank you for mentioning that. So clinicians, for our clinician audience, what's the one thing they need to know about ILWTI?
Just remember that ILWTI not only includes that certified lymphedema therapy training, but we are the only certification school that offers the wound care certification included with our certified lymphedema therapist. So that's the reason we offer the CLWT, which is a certified lymphedema and wound therapist training. Remember that a lot of our courses are offered via teletraining. So if you can't travel, if you can't get away from work, please reach out to us. We would be more than happy to show you our catalog of what we have going on, because not only do we have the certified lymphedema wound therapist, but we have some oncology courses, and we have some complex cardiovascular and lymphedema patient courses, and we have a lot of wonderful and amazing ideas for 2023. So everybody, please stay tuned.
No, wait a minute. You can't just leave us like that, because one of my questions is, what is your wish list for the future?
Oh, our wish list. So we are definitely going to be working with LER Expo this year for a inaugural lymphedema training course that we will do in conjunction with LER Expo, which is going to be an amazing course. It's probably going to be about 6 or 7 hours. Those courses will be wonderful for our lymphedema therapists because they will count for LANA hours to be able to get your reaccreditation hours. For our students at ILWTI, those will also count for that. We are also hopeful that we can create some advanced bandaging courses this year, maybe something that has a lot to do with teaching therapists who maybe have been a little stagnant in their practice and maybe need a little bit of outreach as to what some new compression garments and the Lympha Press has that's out and great, and all of the other companies have that's the latest and the greatest, and try to bring all of that into one course, which I think would be outstanding for a therapist to be able to get all of that in one place versus reaching a bunch of different people to get all of those updates.
That's a good wish list. So I always love to ask, can you think of a success story that really captures your mission at work and something that kind of warms your heart? Because I bet it will warm our audience's hearts too.
Right. So, you know, I'm going to go with a patient on this one. Okay. Because I was originally trained to do lymphedema in the Casley Smith method, right? Well, years down the road, I got a little more interested in wounds and things like that. And then finally, I got wound care certified through ILWTI multiple years back. Well, as I have incorporated more and more wound care into my clinic, and obviously more and more wound care into ILWTI, I've become very open to the level of wound care that I will do. So I actually took a patient recently who was one of our lymphedema patients who was on a maintenance type schedule and been with us for probably 2 years. And he accidentally bumped his leg on a gear shift, getting out of an excavator, right? Caused a huge hematoma, ended up landing himself in the hospital because he was on blood thinners. So he had copious amounts of blood that got into those tissues, and he had to have multiple fasciotomies. So he's coming out of the hospital and he's telling all of the doctors there that he has to have lymphedema treatment because he knows he has to have lymphedema treatment because his leg is humongous. And if he doesn't have lymphedema treatment, he knows the wound is not going to heal. And he is with these physicians to the point that he finally told them, just please get me to Brandy and I'm going to be okay. I'm going to be all right. And sure enough, he comes to me and his leg is awful. By far the worst wound I had ever seen. The whole thing had opened back up. Much of the tissue around that area had necrosed and died. And over the next 2 months, we went from this really awful leg to a leg that was completely healed in combination with the lymphedema treatment. We had to get all the lymphedema back under control. He had it in his legs all the way up to his abdomen. Okay. Horrible exacerbation of lymphedema. So we got him all the way back up and running. He's a farmer, right? And now he is back in his excavator and he is back on his farm equipment as much as he would like to be. And I take that and I teach that to our students, that you can be that therapist. You can be that person, because they told him originally that he was going to lose his leg. That's how bad the wound was, because the lymphedema was so severe and the wound was so severe that that patient was going to lose his leg. And I said, now listen here. We are not in the game of losing extremities. You're going to come to me and we are going to go home with 2 legs. Do you hear me? And he has 2 legs now. And he always laughs. He says, they didn't get that leg, did they, Brandy? And I tell him, no, sir, they did not. So I tell all of our therapists that we train, you can be the person that saves the leg. You can be the person that not only does wonderful things to reduce the lymphedema and heal the wounds, but guess what? We can give quality of life back to our patient's life. Because without quality, it doesn't matter the quantity.
Well, that was so well said, and I got goosebumps. And how inspiring to impart to the next leaders coming up. You can be that person that saves the leg. What a great takeaway. I'm going to give you one last stab at our audience. Is there any takeaway that you want to leave as we close out this interview, Brandy?
Just remember that the world of lymphedema is endless. And all you have to have is a little passion, a little desire. And whether you're a patient or a therapist, you can achieve whatever you want to achieve. Okay? Reach for the stars, reach for the best, and don't ever settle for substandard.
And we will drop the mic at that point, because that's so well said. And Brandy, thank you for being my first guest in the leadership series.
I'm so excited.
I'm excited too, because I feel that these are the stories that aren't often told. We do, and it's important to share research and clinical information, but sometimes people want to know the people that are behind the organizations. So thank you for all that you do. You really are making a difference, and we honor you for that. And I want to thank our audience for tuning in to this edition of the Leadership Series with Lympha Press. If you know someone who deserves the spotlight and whose story should be told, let me know. Brenda bviola@lymphapress.com. I would love to schedule an interview with them. And with that, have a great day, everyone. Thank you, Brenda.
Thank you.